This is today's project, a tribal folded domed cuff. Start with a piece of metal, 20 millimeters wide, 150 mil long, 1 mil thick. Take a template, mark the ends so that you have a nice rounded line. Saw, file, and sand this end. We're going to make a tribal cuff bracelet. The first thing you're going to do is measure the width of your piece. Mine is 20, so I'm going to draw a line down the middle of both the front and the back, 10 mil for mine. I would suggest you make this a little bit wider. I think it'll be easier. So you can see I'm just hooking the bottom edge of my vernier calipers on the metal and then dragging the back so that I get my line. Now I'm going to fold this, so I don't want to put any of my decoration right on the middle, which is why I put the mark there. Now, I have a bunch of steel stamps, different designs, and I also have just a little nail punch, which will make a circle, and stamps that I've made from old files. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick a design. You can draw it on here with a texture, Sharpie, permanent marker, and a permanent marker because that way you won't rub the marks off with your fingers. So lay out your design and then we'll stamp it. When you're stamping, use a chasing hammer, a ball peen hammer, even a carpenter's hammer, but don't ever use any hammer that is smooth and shiny because you'll put marks in it, you'll ruin it. A chasing hammer is actually made for this, and even though it looks nice and shiny, if you look at the face of it, it's all marked up from hitting metal. Now, when you're putting a mark in your metal, I would suggest that you use the anvil, but you're going to put your stamp onto the metal. I lean it sideways so I can see where it's going. Then I straighten it up, feel that it's nice and flat against the metal, and then you just hit it once. If you hit it a second time, you'll have a shadow mark. So just get used to hitting once. Now make sure your metal is annealed. If it isn't, heat it up until it's a dull red, quench it, and pickle it to get the oxides off. And put your pattern in. I'm going to put a texture mark on mine at the 10 millimeter line. And it's just to remind me not to put a stamp on that line. What you can do is you can draw your pattern if you want. And then just follow that. But I'm going to put random stamps with almost all of my stamps. So you can see that I'm using my chasing hammer, and we just make sure the stamp is flat on the metal. Hit it once. Because I've already used that one, I'll lay it to the side, then I'll use the next one. So that was an eye, this is a diamond. Now, We're eventually going to have to round off the end and tidy it up, so don't stamp down here where we're going to cut the corners off. So go ahead and put all of your pattern on. Make sure you've tidied up the ends. You saw your semicircle, file it, and then sand it. Now I put a texture mark on both the front and the back, on the back, so that I'll know where to hammer. I'm using a plastic hammer. You can use a wooden hammer, and I'm just putting it on a groove in the stump so that I can start to fold it. So I've just hit it right down the line. Now I'm going to go back onto the anvil and I'm going to bring these two together, either using a plastic hammer or a rawhide hammer or a wood hammer, and that's so that we don't put any marks in it. So I want this to be smooth, and I don't want to take away from the stamps that I've put in it. So I'm just going to hold this sideways and gently hammer with my rawhide. And we want to hammer this so that it's completely flat now with the rawhide. Now I made a gentle pass through the rolling mill just so that I had a nice smooth compressed line down the middle. At this point we'll anneal it and then open it up. So this is annealed and dried, a straight burnisher, and we're just going to work this into the end. And just start to open it. And then once it's like this, we can hammer it on a ring mandrel and then on a bracelet mandrel. So you can see how it's starting to open just by hammering it on the ring mandrel, and I'm at the small end. And then once you get it so that it's like this, then we can go on to our bracelet mandrel and finish opening it up. Using the rawhide once again, we don't want to put marks in this. So now I'm on the bracelet mandrel. And once it's open, then what we can do is we can go around it, around the bracelet mandrel. And we want to hammer it so that it's a fairly small circle. Doesn't have to be perfect. You can see I'm just pushing with my thumb. So this is basically what we want at this moment. Now we're going to go on our round polished ball, and we're still going to use our rawhide hammer. Now you're going to put this around your polished ball, put it in a vise so that you can use two hands, and you're just going to hammer down the one side, don't hit the middle, and then down the other side so that we have a nice domed cuff. So work your way all the way to the end and hold it tightly around it and make sure that you're in the middle of the ball. It'll be really quick. Make sure your edges are nice and smooth after you take it off the big ball. Then you can put it on around the smaller ball and tap the end with your rawhide hammer to get your proper curve for the oval cuff. Now at this point it's a matter of polishing it. Don't polish it on the Tripoli wheel. If you do that, it'll round off your stamps. Just make sure it's pickled and then put it in the tumbler.